Hi everyone, my name is Robin Lewis. This is my jointer and it's been about 6 months since I did any maintenance on it. So in this video I'm going to go through some of the steps that you can do to make sure that your machine's running as well as it can be. I'm going to start by making sure that the power is off. With this particular unit from Timbecon, there's an indicator to show if there's power running to the machine. So this is off, therefore I know I'm ready to get started. The first thing I'm going to look at are the knives. I'll explain why in a second, but I need to pull this guard back to do that. You can take the guard off, but I've just found it easier to get something like a piece of dowel, chuck it in, and now you can work. This is a spiral head cutter with multiple knives, different to a 3-knife design. And the maintenance is different, but essentially you're achieving the same goal. At some point I've had a stone embedded in a piece of wood, run it over, and I've chipped one of the knives. So I'm gonna rotate that knife to a clean face. So I'm gonna locate the offending tooth. There we go, I'll make a bit of a mark. Keep running through to find any of the other teeth that have been affected. And the reason I know this is happening is I always end up with a very small ridge on the boards that I joint, which indicates that there's a bit of a tooth missing. Okay, so I can see it's only this one tooth that caught it, so I only need to adjust this one. Almost always with these spiral heads will come with a tool to remove the knives. In this case, I think it's a Torx head. But if you have the 3-knife design, then it's just a couple of spanners. It's probably going to click as it comes out. Yep. Now in most cases there will be at least 2 cutting sides on one of these knives. So there will be 2 edges that you can use for cutting. In this particular model there are 4 sides for cutting. So all I need to do is locate the bit that was nicked, move that out the way, and reseat the knife with a new face, a new edge. Then I can screw it back in. Now because of this tapered screw and this positive stop on the back head of this cutter, as I tighten this down, it's going to auto align that knife, and now it's ready to go. This is one of the beauties of this spiral type head with multiple knives, is they self-center. Okay, so that's the knives taken care of. The rest of them I'm all happy with. I don't have any issues. The machine is only 6 months old and doesn't get daily use, so I'm happy with the knives where they are at the moment. Next up, we'll look at the tables. Now, one of the necessities of a jointer is that the tables have to be flat to each other and Coplanner. Without that, the machine is useless. When you buy a machine like this new, you will set this up, and when you do regular maintenance, you generally don't need to adjust it. So I'm not going to change mine because I know that it's true, but I will double check it, and this will give you an idea of how to set these tables. You're going to need a straight edge for this. In my case, I'm using a spirit level, a relatively high end, but you can just get a straight piece of aluminium. You can buy these online. Something that's important though is you want it to be as long as possible. This is a 1200mm level. I would actually prefer a longer one for this machine because you want to be able to measure from this end of the tool all the way to the other end to see if the tables are drooping. So the first thing I'm going to do is check that my cutter head height is correct. I'll do that by placing the level on the outfeed table. I'm not interested in the infeed yet. And I'm going to rotate my cutter head. Now if I get the mic in close, you'll hear this sound. That is the knives just kissing the level. It's actually not making the level move much at all, but it's just touching it. I'll try a bit over here. Again, just catching it. Now I've adjusted this outfeed table over the months of use, and I've got it to where I like it, where it's taking off just enough so that the timber clears this edge, but it's not so much that I get a banana of a board when it comes through. So I'm happy with this. I'm not going to change this. Next up, I'll slide my level across to my infeed table. And what I need is for that gap to be the same all the way along, no matter whether I'm on the front edge or the back edge of the table. And now I need a feeler gauge. Find one. It doesn't have to be any specific size, but what you need to make sure is that if you can get it in under this, only just, so it's got to just fit under and you can feel it's tight. And then on this side, the same thing. So when you're feeling the resistance on one end, you should be feeling it on the other. You can then work to tighter tolerances, but as long as it's, as I say, that slight resistance, for me, that's good enough. Because we are woodworkers here, not machinists, there's enough flex in the material that we don't need to be good to the 1,000th of a millimeter, in my opinion. I could actually adjust this corner. It's so close. No, that'll be fine. If I was going to adjust it, it would be a case of loosening this grub screw in here and then adjusting this eccentric bearing. So knocking it either in this direction. So if I knock the back of the screwdriver, or if I knock the back of the screwdriver in this direction, that's going to either raise or lower this particular corner. And there are 4 of these on each corner of each bed. So that's how you can make sure that the beds are coplanar, which we're going to look at next. So coplanar basically means that the 2 tables are not twisted in other directions from each other. And the easiest way to do that is by using what they call winding sticks. I simply take 2 flat, straight sticks. So in this case, I'm using the levels. I put one on the outfeed table. I put one on the infeed table. And now when I sight down the tables, the 2 levels shouldn't deflect from each other. I've set them up now so you can see them. I'm focused on this front level. I'm not so interested whether the levels are level or not, but what I want to make sure is that this edge at the back, the distance above that level is the same all the way along. And at this point you can see that tiniest thin strip of the yellow level at the back, and it's parallel all the way along. That indicates that this front table is not drooped or lifted on this corner, because if it was, then that yellow line would have a taper to it. So this tells me that the 2 tables are coplanar. Next up, I'm going to check squareness between the fence and the table beds, and for that you use some kind of square. This is a more accurate one, so I'm simply going to test it like that. Now on my tool, if I wanted to make adjustments, I'd simply loosen this handle, and there's a knob here that acts as a positive stop for this, which I'll pull out and rotate. So now at this point I can use this handle and I can pull the fence forward and back if I need to make some adjustments. I'll check it in a few places, and that's all 90. I'm happy with that. Now I can tighten this down and we're good to go. We're looking at the dust port now, and as part of my maintenance regime, I like to make sure that the dust port is clear. So if I stick my hand in there, there are a few chips that are sitting there, and that's just because my dust extraction is not as good as it should be. I'm sure this is something that happens in a lot of people's shops, and so you may get some chips collecting here. So the way I like to deal with this is take a shop vac and stick that up through this dust port and clean out as much as I can. And then I will flip the shop vac hose around so that it blows. You could also use a leaf blower for this. Plug the dust extractor back in and then blow from the top of the jointer through the cutter head and blast them into the dust extractor while it's running. And while I've got my shop vac set to blow, I'll come along and clean off the machine, sticking it into all the nooks and crannies just to get all that dust off and make it look $1,000,000. All right, so that is my jointer all ready to go for another 6 months. Your jointer may be different to this, but the theory is the same and the steps are most likely the same, if not very similar. I hope you found this video enjoyable and maybe picked up on a couple of tips along the way. My name is Robin Lewis. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.